Live. Oh, you know, I don't know if you can see me. How can I figure that out? I know, I think I can turn it around. Hold on, let me figure this out. If I reverse, oh, I know what I need to do. Okay. Let's turn it this way. Go that way. Okay. All right, that works. I can see me. So this is a really informal Facebook Live. I want to talk about reducing reinforcers because it's something I'm messing with Brita. And I get asked that question a lot. I'm going to ask that when you ask questions, you stay on the topic of reducing reinforcers. So not creating reinforcers, not my dog jumps on my guests. What I'll do, and I know some of you won't hear this because you won't have seen it from the beginning, so I'm not concerned that I'll get questions that are off in a different direction. But what I'll do when I scroll through the questions, I'll just skip those so that we can try to keep this on track. Reinforcers are things your dogs want. So when we talk about a primary reinforcer, we usually mean food. You can get into other things, but let's just talk about food for a sec. It works. It's the most classic primary reinforcer. What I mean is the most used. And it's the one that most people use to create secondary reinforcers. So a secondary reinforcer would be something like a hand touch. Your dog touches, you give it a cookie, or a clicker. If you click, you give the dog a cookie. Well, slightly different, but that's okay. And we create secondary reinforcers so that we can use them when we don't have access to primary reinforcers. Or we might use them as a bridge. So we're trying to help our dogs string together many behaviors. So rather than saying sit, cookie, down, cookie, we might say sit, hand touch, down, hand touch. So it's not a direct reinforcer, but if your hand touch has been frequently paired with cookies, then it's actually not so bad. So I would call that a bridge, right? You're using something that's familiar to the dog to help them understand that they're on the right track. Or a person might say good. That's another common one. Personal play, I'm going to talk about it for a sec because it's a complicated reinforcer. Done well and with a lot of effort and with the right dog, personal play should be a primary reinforcer. Your dog should enjoy interacting with you for the sake of the activity. But there's lots and lots of dogs that don't, and there could be a lot of reasons for that. So there's lots of dogs out there who personal reinforcement, personal play, is very valuable to them until you're within a training context. Because once you're in a training context, the dog says, no, don't scratch my head, give me a cookie. That's not really an issue of whether or not the dog likes personal interaction, play, scratching, praise. The problem is one of deprivation. The dog is comparing what they would really like to have, a cookie, to what you're offering. So if the cookie is worth a 9 and your personal interaction is worth a 3, you actually have a -6. That's the problem. The problem isn't the play itself. So that's fine. There's lots of things we can do with that, but just be aware that for personal play to have value to your dog, first of all, build that up separately from your training. You never use a reinforcer your dog doesn't want. So if you're playing tug with your dog and he doesn't care about playing tug, don't use that in training. Work on that separately. Personally, my approach to engagement, and I talk about this all the time, this engagement stuff, I really want my dog to value personal interaction with me, and I put a lot of energy into that for a lot of reasons, but one of them is going to come up now in this topic on reducing reinforcers. Because I don't use a reinforcer in training that my dog does not want. So when I let Burrito out of the pen, if I say, hey, pup, 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 scratch his head, clap, and interact with him, if I do not see obvious value to him in that behavior, I'm not going to use it to reinforce other behaviors. However, if I do those things and he loves that, and then I give him a cookie, I actually have a two-part deal here. One, he values the interaction in and of itself because I've created it as a strong primary reinforcer. And two, I am also going to follow it up with a cookie a lot because now I also have a secondary reinforcer, don't I? And then if at any given time I want more strength behind the behavior, maybe play is only a 3 when it's in the context of work. If I play with my dog and then I follow it up with a cookie, as long as it's a 3, I have a pretty good chance that in a combination, this dog will take it because food's not that important to him. You might do things differently if the food had more value. It kind of depends. So once a behavior is trained, I think anybody watching this feed is probably on the sophisticated side. you're probably a trainer in some way. And so there's some things you probably know, but I'll just mention them. When you're training a behavior, your reinforcement rate should be 100%, right? Sit, give the dog a cookie. Sit, give the dog a cookie. Do not drop reinforcement under that. So now the question is the food on your body or is the food off your body? Well, if you're training with a lure, the food is on your body. It's a lure, right? So you're gonna have the food on your body. If you shape, you have a choice. If you mark, click when you like what you're seeing, you can click and then get the food from somewhere else. The advantage to doing that is the dog's not watching your hands, which is usually where the food is. So it's actually kind of useful if the food is over there or over there, because it can keep the dog a little bit more focused on what you're doing. Just don't have the value of the food so high that the dog is being sucked in that direction. So there's some value there. Make sure that if you do that, you alternate where that food is, because if you're working straight fronts and the cookies are always over there, even if you're clicking, you click all you want, the location of the reinforcer is very powerful to the dog, so then you'd want to vary that. But not having it on your hands has the advantage of the dog may well be doing more thinking, and a lot of you have seen that. You've noticed that when the food is on your body, your dog is more tense, and when the food is off your body, you don't have the same picture, and usually that's seen as a complaint. Because it's at a different stage of training. So in this case, if I'm shaping, I have a choice. So how about shaping with food on my body? Well, the advantage to that, I can be quicker, right? So I like what I saw, I can give the dog the cookie. That's fine, but I've already kind of gone through the disadvantages based on what I just said, right? It's very easy to get reliant on the cookie in your hand. It's very easy to start luring. It's very easy to magnetize the dog with the cookie into doing things you want. So, you know, these are all things to kind of think through. I do all of them. So I'm not going to really say that. I'm not in the camp of shaping is better than luring is better. I don't really do that. I train dogs. I just get behaviors, however it works best for a given dog. So what I'm going to show you now with Burrito is he's unfortunately falling asleep. I don't know how much dog I have, but I'll work on it. I'm going to show you a few things. One is a little bit of personal play. I'm going to bring the cookies out, he'll know about them. So I'm going to show you how I interact. If I see that in a dog, I can start using play. The second thing I'm going to show you is a behavior that I feel that he knows fairly well, which is go to heel. So he'll come from front to heel position. And what I'm going to do, well, I guess I have to do front first. So I'll call him to front. He knows that well. So what I'll do is, instead of reinforcing it directly, because he doesn't need 100%, I'm going to reinforce it by sending him on to heel position. The reason that works is I would never have sent him to heel position if the front wasn't correct. I would have dealt with the problem with the front. So by allowing him to continue on, I'm creating, that would be a very simple behavior chain. Behavior number 1, come to front, no cookie. Behavior number 2, go to heel position. That's the start of a chain, yeah? When he gets to heel position, I have choices. I could give him a cookie directly. I could have it on my body, give him the cookie. I could have it off my body, in which case I would probably mark the behavior. You can click, you can say yes, and then get the cookie. Or I could play with him. So now I'm using a secondary reinforcer / primary, because remember, play is complicated. I'm playing with him there, or I'm interacting. And now I have another choice. Do I back that up with a cookie? So now I would have front, finish, personal interaction, play, cookie, or front, finish, mark it, get the cookie. These are choices. These are all things that are fair and they work and they're all great. And the cookie might be on me or might be off me. And then I'm going to show you a behavior that he's learning. He's learning how to go around me in a circle. And so because it's a 100% reinforcement situation, because he's just learning, I can show you how I'm handling that. It's not a named behavior. I help him as much as I have to. I have a choice there because he no longer relies on the food in my hand. I did teach it as a semi-lure, but I used my hand as a target. Call that what you want. Because I used my hand as a target, it was optional to have food in my hand or not. But it's 100% reinforced, whether or not I have the food on my body or off my body. So there's some background for you. Let me grab a dog. Oh man, that doesn't look good. Let's see how much I've got to work. You want to work? Rita, you want to work? Oh, I have cookies. You want to play? Let's go. Good boy. You want to work? All right. Want to do something? There's some dog food up here. This looks pretty good. What's that? There's some dog food. There's some dog food. There's some food. What? All right. I know he likes this because he's not trying to get away, right? You You're a good boy. I'm going to get them. There's cookies over there. There are. Yeah, there are cookies. Yeah. Did you want one? You want a cookie? I get you one. There's a cookie. Ready? Get it. You get it. Oh, that was tasty, huh? That was so tasty. That was so tasty. I'm going to get him. I'm going to eat you back. Okay. Want to work? Yes. He just like two. Okay, ready? Rito, come. Look at you. That's such a good boy, huh? You're a super puppy. I get you a cookie. I did not mark that one because that really wasn't a very good finish. So there's a little delay there between his cookie, huh? Ready? Rito. Come. I know, she's not happy. In. I did that because I do not want to have two problems in a row. Good boy. Look at you. So when I saw he wasn't going to sit straight, I did not let him finish that. I don't want to have multiple bad finishes. So I fixed it. I made a pivot, and then I reinforced that, right? Okay, ready? I like that. That one I'm going to give it to him, huh? Rito, it's here. I didn't throw it. Good. Tasty? I know, those are a little hard. Nice. Okay, ready? Good boy. Now that one, cookie, I chose to have the food off my body. If the cookie is on my body, basically the same behavior. Now he's warmed up, so he's doing better with it. Good boy, cookie. Good job. You did so good. You did so good. Are you smart? Are you a smarty pants? Are you a smarty pants? He still does not avoid me. He might go to the cookies, but he's not turning down the praise, right? So that means it has value. So how about if I use praise only as the reinforcer? Okay, ready? Rito, come. That's not come. Ready? Come. Nice, look at you. Okay. Super. Super. You did so good. You did good. Ready? Rito, come. Around. Good boy. That's it. Now that time, cookie, I clicked as he was heading around. That's because I'm actually working on him going quickly and without a lot of help from me. So he did it. He got off his butt. He started going. I clicked for that, but I reinforced on this side because that's really where I wanted to be. If that were not an issue, I would have waited till he was here to click and taken my position. Now, another thing we're working on, he's a little slow when we start bad turns and some positions. So now I have to have food on my body because I'm going to use the food as a training aid. I can't get rid of that, right? So let's get a couple cookies. Ready? Let's go. Good. Ready. Get it. Good boy. I just want that first step. Ready? In. Good. Ready? Let's go. Good. Ready? Rito, in. I could use this as a hand touch. Ready? Up. Good. Didn't have cookie in the hand. So if you prefer not to have the cookie in the hand, that works just fine. Or if you need the cookie just to get rid of them so you can practice behavior, get it. Rito, come. Good. Through. So there we have a chain. Let's go. In. Good. Now our chain's getting a little longer. Now what are my choices? What a good dog. You're such a super puppy. It's a cookie. You get a cookie. Because I had a cookie on me. Okay. Cookie. Now we'll get the cookies off. Rito, come. Around. Look at you. Super. Play as a reinforcer. No cookie to back that one up. Ready? Let's go. Good boy. Hurry. Look at you. And this is hard because I'm trying to stay on the carpet. Super. What a good dog. Reinforcer is play. Okay, let's get you a cookie. And I'm backing up the play cookie. All right, let me put him away. And then I'll look at your questions. Who's a star? Oh, you're a star. There we go. Can you go in your house? You go in your house. There. All right, let's see if you have questions. Give myself a little more comfortable spot. There. Okay. Oh. All right, I'm live, I got that. You sound so zen. Yeah. So Alicia says that her major challenge with her puppy is her main reinforcers play with other dogs and or people, making it hard to make a connection with her, struggling to make herself valuable. Yeah, just make sure you separate those issues. It's not a problem that your dog likes playing with other dogs. It's really not. That's just one reinforcer that you probably won't use in training. You could, but that's probably a little beyond this talk. Lori, I'm sorry I'm not loud enough. Hopefully most people can pick it up. Thank you for those of you who are providing technical support to each other, because that's not an area I can help with. How did I teach him to go in a circle backwards? If you have pocket hand, it's actually just pocket hand. Wherever you turn your hand, remember your back fingers. This one, if your dog is trained that way, whatever direction the fingers point, the dog goes. So if I put my hand behind me, then that's the direction he goes. Vilma, it doesn't matter if you missed the beginning, you can just watch it. It's recorded. All right, does anybody have any questions about reinforcement, reducing reinforcement, or using it strategically, or applying it to personal play? Because I'd like to sort of stay on that topic if we can. Because people ask me about it all the time. Okay, so I'll just generally say a couple things while you decide if you do have questions. I think reducing reinforcement is often harder on the human than it is on the dog, because it's very comforting for us to hold the cookie in your hand. I think you're going to find it's not as hard as you think it is to drop that if you choose to. Okay, how do you switch from food to toy? You just do. Honestly, wherever you would normally click and give a cookie, click and play with the toy. But make sure the toy has value away from the behavior you're teaching. Don't start that. Yeah. Does the cookie after the personal interaction end up making the personal interaction more valuable? Stephanie, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I do tons of teaching of personal play. I teach it a lot, online and in person. And it's hard to say, because at the same time that we might be using food to back up the interactions, we're also doing a lot of interaction. So I really couldn't tell you, because each team is different. What I would need to know that would be 10 teams taught one way and 10 teams taught without the food, and then compare their play. So I can't really say. Did Burrito always enjoy personal play? Not like this, not in training. He's always been a really snuggly dog, like sit on your lap, but not a personally playful dog, if that makes sense. But it's very important to me, and it's really fun, and honestly, he's super cute, you know, so it's fun to play with a dog who's super cute. Does it depend on the dog if you have the food on you or away? One of my dogs was getting too excited while training, couldn't concentrate and try to think. Yeah, you know, I think that totally makes sense. Every single thing I do is about the dog I'm training right at that moment. That's the way I think, always. So if I find that holding a food has a dog staring at my hands, then yeah, you're right, get that food off your body. But especially with my Belgians, I found that they're oblivious. They could care less what is where. They understand the relationship between do what I want, you'll get what you want. Very, very easy for them to understand that. Burrito has a lot more trouble with that. He just thinks a little bit more concretely and directly. So if I ask him to run out to a cookie and it's 100 feet away, I can teach that relatively quickly on a plate.
If I ask him to run out and touch a stanchion and it's 100 feet away, we're talking 3 years of effort. Whereas my big dogs, for them, it was almost simultaneous. They just didn't have the complexity. So yeah, train the dog you've got for sure. You're right. Please, can you go through the math again with veils? Help me out, Karen. I'm not sure what you're asking. Ask the question again. I'm not sure what you're saying, but I'll try to answer it for you. How long to reinforce play? How much is too much? Oh, well, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess it just feels like the right amount to me. How much does your dog need? How much does your dog want? With toy play, my dog's, well, not him. He's not that into it, but there would never be too much. It would just be fun, fun, fun no matter what I do. I think the bigger question is how much is too little. That is where more people, I think, are at risk. They're, well, stingy. Duration without a treat is hard. Christina, it depends on the dog. Some dogs struggle horribly to heel or do really anything for long stretches, a minute, 2 minutes like that. Burrito would have a lot of trouble with it, but I have no real motivation to teach it, so I'm not worried about it. It depends on the dog. My Belgians, it was total non-issue. It just didn't matter. Some dogs are going to make that very painful. I will say this though, sometimes I've noticed that people decide that it's time to reduce reinforcement and it's like a decision. So they go from feeding absolutely everything and then they don't know why their dog won't heel for 5 minutes, and that's kind of an error. If you're going to reduce reinforcement for the purposes of competition, it should be a very long process over months and should start as behaviors are being finished off. You should be thinking about not feeding them all the time. There's no reason to keep feeding them, right? If you start thinking that way early on without even noticing it, what you'll probably notice is that you're going longer and longer without a treat. You just stop using it so much. So I would suggest you not say to yourself, well, now today I'm going to go 3 minutes and tomorrow I'm going to go 3.5. Don't knock yourself out. It could be a little bit more organic than that. So for example, heeling in particular, you didn't mention a specific behavior, but I'll just address heeling because that's the common one. Heeling is the hardest, if you want my opinion, because it's, well, sort of boring for some dogs and it's hard work. It takes mental energy depending on how you teach it, how you do it, and it doesn't have a lot of intrinsic interest. So why don't you try this? Try 30 seconds of heeling, secondary reinforcer. Aren't you amazing? Now do something the dog loves. Maybe your dog loves to retrieve. Wonderful. Get out your dumbbell, throw your dumbbell. You just bought yourself another 30 seconds, right? Dog brings it back. Who's a star? You're a star. Take the dumbbell down, put it away, send your dog out around a cone. Super, you just picked up another half a minute. Now, back to the heeling. 30 more seconds of heeling, get out that treat, reinforce it. So if I have a behavior that's a little tougher to increase endurance, I'm probably going to reward that one when I do reward it. But that doesn't mean that that is the behavior I'm going to do for minutes. So like if I want to get 5-minute behavior, 5 minutes without reinforcer, it's not going to be 5 minutes of heeling. It's just not, because that's going to erode the quality of my heeling. It's just going to be 5 minutes. And anyway, at least in the United States, there are no times when you would need 5 minutes of heeling. That's a little different internationally. Can you discuss what this would have looked like with different exercises with Burrito early in his training when he wasn't so training savvy? Well, I'm not in any hurry to get the cookies off me, but really, as soon as he knows something, there's no reason not to stop using the cookies. So let's just say sit. Well, actually, that's a joke because I find sit down and stand actually kind of hard because my dogs aren't generally that verbal, or I'm not that good at teaching it. But once a behavior is comfortable, then, okay, so let's say dumbbell retrieve. Dumbbell retrieve must have 20 pieces, right? And I start it when they're little. Well, just by virtue of creating behavior chains, he goes from just putting his mouth on it, click, reward, that takes 2 seconds, to sit, stay, throw, fetch, come back, front, out. Thank you. That was now 15 or 20 seconds. So it's the same. It's just, it's a chain that's created by the exercise itself. So I'm going to just remind those of you who are joining later, I'm only going to answer questions specific to reinforcing and reducing reinforcement just to keep this on track. My dog plays and likes cookies, but he tends to choose which ones he wants each session if they are both present. Do you let the dog choose? That's a hard question, Agnes. I'm a really not controlling trainer. I might let them choose. Um, I do put a lot of energy into teaching my dogs to kind of switch around because I think there's different value for me for a dog. I want my dog to fetch a ball. I want my dog to play tug. I want my dog to eat cookies. I want my dog to like me and play with me personally. So there's 4 things there. I'm going to work on all of them. If I find that playing tug is a 5 and a cookie is an 8, right off the bat, I'm probably going to try to drop that cookie's value. Like today, I'm just using kibble, right? So I'm going to try to drop that kibble down to a 5. If my dog is, and my Belgians sometimes are just manic for their toys over the food, well, in that case, I'm going to see what I could do to raise the value of the toy. If I'm going to use high rate of reinforcers, let's just say Cheerios, and I'm doing a game like I was doing with him, 1 step, reinforce that. If I'm doing super high rate of reinforcement work, I'm probably not using high value reinforcers, in which case then the next thing I'm going to do is after he's done 10, I'm going to give him a break with something really fun, maybe a toy or a ball or something to move him around. And over time, that really does help teach dogs to go back and forth. So maybe that helps you a bit. How do you judge when you think a dog is ready to reinduce reinforcement? When I'm pretty darn sure they're going to do it. I mean, I'm a little surprised if I tell my dog to stay, throw dumbbells, say fetch, and they don't do it. As long as I'm surprised, then it's probably okay to reduce reinforcement. If I'm not surprised, because it's a common event, then I shouldn't be reducing reinforcement. So often I tell people you should be genuinely surprised when your dog fails. If you're not genuinely surprised, you sure as hell should not be trialing and probably not reducing reinforcement either. Linnell, for the cookies off you, could he just take them out of the bowl if he wanted to? Yeah, I mean, he could get the food. It's right there. He just wouldn't. He knows not to do that. That's just part of his general training. That's the whole book, Beyond the Backyard, is teaching dogs to, well, actually, the whole book is reducing reinforcement and the stuff we're talking about here, and ignoring distractions that are in the environment. So yeah, I would expect if I have a cookie on the floor that he can heal past that and work in spite of it, unless I tell him he's free. If he's free, he's going to eat it. I can tell you that. But that doesn't bother me. You're welcome, Elizabeth. I like doing stuff like this. Japan, that's cool. Courtney, I've been able to use personal play in between training sessions and at the end of sessions, but I've been having trouble using it during training. Try doing what I did where I sandwiched it. So reach down, quick scratch, scratch, scratch on the head, cookie. So it starts to predict the food. That might help you a little bit. If the dog values personal play but likes cookies better, when can you use play without cookies? Well, I would get that on a variable reinforcement, Diane, in and of itself. So sometimes your dog can't know which one it's going to be. So sometimes you play and back it up with a cookie. Sometimes you play and back it up with more work. And then the work might lead to the cookie. So think of it as an engagement process. Oh, Margaret. This is not a question about, I'll answer it just because, but it's not about reducing reinforcement. Why do you mainly work with dogs on your right when healing is on the left? I don't. The camera reverses it because it's an iPhone and it's a mirror image. He is on the left. It just looks like he's on the right. Whoops. Megan, what do you do when you think you have the reinforcer your dog wants, but find out in that environment, for whatever reason, he's just not that into it? I quit. If what I have is not motivating my dog and the environment is, then I just quit. Vilma, has Brito been in the ring? What do you do before and after ring time? I don't think I'm going to show Brito. What do you do before and after ring time? Well, it would depend on the dog. If I was going to show him, for him, I would probably do sort of stage 3 engagement. So he has to ask me to work, drive me to work. Oh, wait, that's probably annoying to you guys. That's, for some reason, the light. That's not going to work either, is it? Hold on. We'll go that way. Now it's annoying to me. Let me think where I was at. Oh, well, so for him, I would probably tell him what he was going to get. I'd probably give him some cookies because I find he does better if he's warmed up and he knows what's on the table. And then I would use personal play in the ring between exercises. I don't know if I would backchain the whole thing with him. I'd have to think about it. With the Belgians, I just spent an enormous amount of energy teaching them to value ring objects and personal play, and I just didn't back it up at all when I got outside the ring. But he's a different guy. I'm staying to the questions that are kind of on. Oh, God, yeah. So, Vilma, the first 10 times in the ring, my dogs are much better than after the CDX and UD. Campaign versus qualifying. I don't have an answer to that. I really don't. It's exactly my experience with every dog I've ever competed with. They're brilliant when they think they're going to get something. When they think I can leave, it doesn't have to be on my body. They know it's not on my body. They've known that for a long time. But when they think I can just stop in the middle of a performance and run out of the ring and get cookies, there is no doubt in my mind they are way sharper than when they understand that we're settling in and we're just going to do this. And I feel the change in the behavior, and I do not have an answer to that question. I think at some point, some dogs, it's the character of the dog. I think some dogs, there's a reason why 3 breeds completely dominates the sports, especially obedience. But, you know, really, we'll look at Border Collies and agility. The reason is that those dogs bring something to the table inside that even when they know there's nothing in it for them, and even when they know there's no corrections, they stick it out, right? That I believe is a temperament quality, not a training one. And that's certainly proven by generations and generations of extremely successful competitors. That doesn't mean other dogs can't be successful, but like I said with my own dogs, I knew when they knew, but they're good girls, they're good dogs, they stuck it out because I asked them to do it. But they didn't, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as it was before they understood that I wasn't going to run out of the ring and get them a cookie. And I think that's just a challenge. I don't have an answer. I think a lot of the times when people say the solution to that, they're working with dogs that aren't terribly challenging and they don't understand that. All right, what about jackpot randomizing the cookies? Mix kibble and cheese and either pick randomly one cookie or give more chances of getting a cheese cookie by feeding more pieces of cookies. This seems to have a positive effect. Yeah, Dan, I'm all for that. I talk about that in Beyond the Backyard. I talk about putting 10 cookies in a bowl and the next 10 reinforcers come out of that bowl. It's already been predetermined. I think that's great. Okay, Nina, I'm not sure if I can explain it correctly. My other dog's primary reinforcer is food. He loves to play as well and is able to switch from play to food and vice versa. Okay. Although in distance training, sometimes it's much easier to use a toy placed on the ground rather than treat and train. He would pick tugging over a treat, but just the toy placed on the ground isn't very appealing. Would you change your reward to something else, or is the way you can use food to make the toy more appealing? I actually would, that's a toy, in my opinion, that's a toy issue. I would work on teaching the dog that dead toys come to life and put a lot of game energy into that. Diane Smith. Karen Wilson asked a question above. I know, but when she clarified the question, I forgot what the main question was, so I went over it. I did see it, but I can't remember as I scroll what I've seen. Why am I not going to show him? I'm dying to see him kick ass. So Vilma wants to know why I'm not going to show Brito. because I just don't care to go back. I just am not, nothing is driving me to go to dog shows, and unless that changes, I'm just not there. Stephanie, after you've reduced reinforcers to prepare for a competition, will you ever bring back reinforcers at a higher level temporarily after the competition? Yeah, I don't really reduce reinforcers to prepare for a competition. I just reduce reinforcers as part of training. So if I'm working on fronts, then I'm going to reinforce every single correct front. I mean, why wouldn't I, right? If with my dogs that were competing at reasonably high levels, my prior dogs, before the trial, I would do something like bring out a platform which forces 100% correctness. And I would absolutely reinforce every front. Now, in fairness, that reinforcer was play because of what I was doing with those dogs. But it was a reinforcer to them. So I don't think you should ever think in terms of reducing reinforcement just to prepare for competition. I think you should think in terms of interspersing everything you have to offer in your training, maybe using low value treats simply to mark things you're really thrilled about. So you're trying to get those beautiful fronts or finishes, just get out the Cheerios and be super, super generous. And simultaneously you can work on, and now we're gonna do a longer stretch. Now we're gonna do a half a minute. Now we're gonna do a minute, and then bring out the really good stuff. You know, the thing I'll say about reinforcers and reducing and such, I really think there's a lot of ways to get there. And I've seen a lot of people be successful with all different approaches. So I think you can mess around and you can get there a lot of ways. I do think it helps to know your dog and to know what they value. You know, the more your dog cares about what's on the table and the less the dog cares about you, that's fine. It's just that I'm going to work with that. I'm going to say, well, all right, that's fine. Here's what's on the table. That's what you're working for, and I'm going to let them focus on that. The more the dog cares about me and actually wants to please me, the more I'm going to take advantage of that. The less I'm going to back chain, the less I'm going to jackpot, the more I'm going to make it about me. In my opinion, those are the best competitor dogs, the ones that really enjoy the activity with you. They value it greatly, simply interacting with you. I would actually say that Burrito's very close to that point. He really enjoys working with me. I think the reinforcers mark his behavior, but he's just thrilled to work with me. And then I would say a dog like Lyra, not so much. She really does it for what's in it for her. And so I would approach it that way if I was preparing for competition. And I don't think that's wrong. I just think it's different. All right. That's it. I think we're good. This was fun. Thanks, guys. I'm going to let you go. Bye.